The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today.
Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polke, and I am the host of the journey. And we have a special guest with us today, Matt Nyberg. And Matt and I have known each other in a handful of different capacities. Probably, I don't know, probably the last 8 to 10 years of it regarding your work and then at our church that we go together,
Yep.
go to church similar, and just knowing each other's families and stuff. So, welcome to the journey, Matt.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I think when I started at Rockford Christian, I think your son was wrapping up playing football. So I think our first interactions, right, were me like announcing a game and you standing right outside the booth.
Yeah.
Was was probably where we started. So it's been a little bit now.
Yep. That would have been, he graduated in 14, so that would have been the fall of 13. Um,
Okay.
right
Yeah.
around that time period. So
Yeah. That's fun. That's
yeah,
fun. Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. So Matt, just like whenever I ask somebody to come onto the show, we start off with just like a simple question of when you have the opportunity for fun, what does Matt get to do when he has fun? Or what do you want to do when you have fun?
What do I want to do when I have fun? Man, I feel like that's changed as my life has changed. There was a day where fun was like active and going and doing something. But now in a season of life with a full career and four little kids, right now fun is like going out. We live on a small farm. I go out to the barn, got a little like workshop, wood shop where working on some creative project with just for myself or somebody else I love, and just kind of giving it away and just
Yeah.
having fun. Like that's I feel lame saying that, but in this season of life, that's a lot. That's a fun night right there.
Yeah. Well, I can, I think of my dad was, had always worked with his hands. He was a licensed electrician growing up, worked in factories, different factories, throughout his life, had a handyman business for a while. And then
Nice.
somewhere probably about the last 20 years of his life, and he had done, I mean, I remember one time, he's cross stitching, right? And then another time embroidery, not cross stitch,
Yeah,
embroidering,
yeah.
right? And he would embroider these like denim shirts back in the
Mm-hmm.
70s. They were
Very cool. Yeah,
things
yeah. I
on
can
there.
picture it.
Yeah, and then what's that, with the like the making the rugs, with the latch hook thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stained glass stuff. But toward the last 15, 20 years, he would do either carving or he would
Mm,
make things out of wood,
yeah,
things out of wood, carving, mostly carving, but he had a handful of canes and
yeah.
things that he's made over the time period. So I I want to get into this space where I can use some of his tools to do some of that. I just don't want to lose
Yeah.
a digit or anything. So,
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You
yeah,
you don't want to dive in too deep right out of the gate. So
yeah,
yeah, that's fun. It's a good like, I've found just in there, right? Like I enjoy woodworking. I like the production of building something, but just kind of like you described about your dad, like just the ability to be creative and try things out and learn something new. I love golfing and basketball and sports and all that, but the mental clarity that comes from doing something with your hands and being creative is I love it. So I appreciate that.
yeah. So Matt, growing up, yeah, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what was the family like, and yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up out in Stillman Valley, just outside of Rockford, on a little small family farm. I was the youngest of three, and without diving too deep down the rabbit hole here, I was the youngest of three. My brother was valedictorian, straight A's through high school. My sister was salutatorian, straight A's through high school. For me, it was a little bit more of a winding path through school. I can remember my parents saying, "We've just never had this problem before." When we would sit down to talk in middle school or high school, trying to figure life out. But it was good. In a lot of ways, it was kind of the small town America, idyllic, everybody knows you community that, is good and bad all at the same time, but I'd say largely a really positive thing in my life. That Yeah, went through kind of that season, and came out going going to college and trying to figure life out. And so I've always kind of been around the Rockford area and Rockford community, but just a little removed for the growing up part.
Sure, sure. So when you were, and where'd you go to college? Where'd you go end up going to school?
So I went a couple places. I went to Rock Valley to start, and graduated from NIU with a bachelor's from there, and then went out to Denver Seminary and did a master's out there right after getting married, right out of college. So
Gotcha. And what did you study at NIU?
I did a degree in communications. So
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
about talking to people.
Yeah, there you go. And then when you graduate, going, okay, now what am I going to do with this, right?
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
wrong?
seriously. Yeah, there's not a lot of natural, like, you go do this job
Yeah.
with a degree in communications. But I got the degree, check the box. So
Yep, yep.
yeah.
So, and prior to, I mean, we met obviously, as you said, at Rockford Christian.
Yeah.
Was that your first educational
It
role?
was. Yeah, I had not really planned on going into education without kind of long story. My teenage years had a lot of ups and downs in high school, and the youth group at our church became a really meaningful community that helped me through a lot of that. And so I graduated from high school thinking like, all right, I need to go be a youth pastor, right? This helped me. I need to go do this for the rest of my life, kind of thing. And I got to seminary, got partway through, and quickly realized, like, man, God did not wire me to be a pastor. I enjoy preaching, I enjoy being around church, but my brain is wired for I think a lot more structure, maybe is the right word. I'm not sure if that's the best way to describe it. And so, I got out of seminary. I did remodeling for a little while. I worked at Rosecrans here in town. I worked on the boys' wing for a little while, and then I did some drug resistance classes at local schools and that kind of thing for a window of time. And then a job opened up at Rockford Christian teaching Bible and coaching basketball. And I was like, all right, I think this is the next step. And now 13 years later, we're still here. So what started as a like, oh, this might be interesting, I should try this out, has now been a little over a decade of kind of just weaving through seasons of life here.
Okay, okay. Well, and that's again, that's where we met, right? Was
Right, right.
at high school level, at the secondary level, and then
Yep.
now you're the head principal at the lower level, correct?
Yes, yeah. So I was at that high school level as the teacher for 3 years, and then was the dean of students there for 3 years. So six at the upper school, and now I'm going into my seventh year as the principal here at the lower school. So here's pre-K three up through fourth grade. So it was a switch going from high school problems, right, to coming down, and they're a little different here. Uh, but it's got its stress for sure. The high school has a different kind of stress, but it's good. I love it. It's a super fun job. Yeah, and so started at the high school, and then I'll just say this real quick. Like, I don't think I could have done this job until I had my own kids, right? Like, it was once I became a parent and lived it for 4 or 5 years, then it was like, okay, I think I can work with younger kids now. But it wasn't a natural thing for me right out of the gate.
Sure, sure. Well, and I think, I mean, I just remember doing my internship, my field placement as a school social worker, and I had to do a grade school placement, a middle school, and a high school placement. And
Yeah.
and I had already been in the private sector, counseling and doing corrections and doing addiction work and things. And I remember being at that grade school, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? They don't talk back. I mean, they
Yeah.
talk back, but they don't talk, Like,
Right, right.
so it was a learning curve for sure. And then when I graduated, we had a self-contained. I was in charge of the self-contained program, and we had a grade school program. We had a middle school and high school classroom, and that was a little bit different just because of it was a little bit different type of counseling at that point.
Yeah,
But
I bet.
yeah, it was there was definitely a learning curve on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say this. This is just kind of funny, right? I come from high school, I come down to elementary, and this is in like my first year here, and one of the staff sends a kid in to see the principal because he used, I think it was that's right. It was the S word. He called his friend the S word at recess, right? And so I'm coming from like high school level, like I'm ready to, we're gonna lay down the law and make sure everybody understands how we talk and don't talk around here. And anyways, I get in with the kid and quickly start kind of talking with him, and uh, all of a sudden I'm like, "Hold on, man! Like, what word did you say?" And he's like, "Oh, the S word," and was like, "I'm gonna need you to spell that for me." He's like, "Well, I'm not sure." I was like, "Just give me your best guess." You know what I mean? Like, give me your best guess on spelling it. And he was like, Stupid. And I was like, oh man, okay. We got a way different conversation here than I was prepared for like 3 minutes ago. So and definitely glad I asked a few questions before I launched into talk, talking and saying too much and teaching him some other new words, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it especially when you come from the teenage, it's good stuff. But it's definitely you got to kind of shift gears in your brain a little bit, right? To meet the kids where they're at.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know, and I'm so grateful, Matt, that you are willing to help us out. This is Suicide Awareness Month,
Yep.
and soon on the 18th of this month, we're going to be doing the ninth SOS Shatter Our Silence annual dinner at Prairie Street,
Yep.
and you're a keynote, and so
I'm super excited. Yeah, super
yeah,
excited.
looking forward, and I've seen you obviously talk numerous times at the church, being the guest, well, you're on the rotation now, so I guess you're
Yeah.
not guest anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
there. And so when you think of, well, yeah, let's start where we just left off. When you think of
Yep.
today in 2025, mental health as it impacts your students and the parents of your students, and then like even pre-pandemic, when you think of when you were at Rockford, at the high school, the upper school, yeah, tell us a little bit, just your perspective from a teacher, as a principal. Yeah, what have you noticed over that, and what's different between the high school and lower level?
Yeah, man, I there's so much there, right? In all that you asked. I think the a couple of things that come to mind. The first one, and you can probably speak to this far better than me, but just in the education sphere, interacting with families and kids, I feel like pre-pandemic, the when it came to mental health struggles for people, I don't, it don't, it, I don't, and not even really totally pre-pandemic, but maybe it was just working with teenagers, is that like you could kind of see some things coming, if that makes sense. Like working at the high school, you'd be interacting with kids, and over a period of time, you would kind of see things changing for them, and you'd be trying to engage in their life and helping them, and you could kind of see things progress. I guess what I would just say is I feel like lately the uh things come on so fast. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If that kind of makes sense, is that it felt like pre-pandemic it was a little bit different, but I don't know if now it's just the weight of the world on everybody's shoulders, as things seem so incredibly difficult across the board. But I guess I would just say that's been one of the things I've noticed from staff to teachers and community members and other kids within the community, is that I guess the struggles can just move so quickly now. I don't know if you see that in your practice and that kind of thing, but I don't know if that's just anecdotal for me, but I'd say one, as I watch and interact, you can talk with people and kind of have a sense of where they're at. and then within a short amount of time, it's progressed really quickly, kind of thing. And so, um, the other thought of working in a school setting where you're interacting with, hundreds, if not kind of thousands of family units, right? Is I would just say it it affects everybody. You know what I mean? There's no kind of prescriptor or list that it's like, oh, if you have these, if your family has these five things, mental health struggles or issues won't affect you. It's across the board. Um, families that look wildly different from each other will struggle with similar things. And it being in the principal role, you don't hear every detail, but you get to be privy to details in people's lives, right? That don't get shared with everybody. And so it's not my place to come and like share those things, but I'd say as I as I've been doing this 13 years now and interacting with thousands of families in that window of time, um, man, there's no prescription that is just okay. You take this and do this one habit with your family or this or that. That mental health is something that just has to be continually pursued, particularly with kids and teenagers. It's not a There's no, okay, we just check these boxes and we're all going to be clear from here kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you've heard me share numerous times the origin story of Shatter Our Silence
Yeah.
was the result of, the three students in the class of 2014 that died of
Right.
suicide in that window of like 3 years. And
Right.
and I think, that was obviously there was a part of me, the naive aspect of myself, having been at that time 25 years in the counseling world, and
Yeah.
I'm, part of it. I think there was one aspect of me that naive was like, like, why is this happening at Rockford Christian, or
Right.
if to your point, if it can happen here, then where else is this happening? And
Yeah.
that was one aspect of it. But then later, as I dug, and the people with me on the SOS board and the team, as we start digging into it, it's more to your point. It's not, why here. It's like, why not here? It's that
Right.
it had, uh, economic demographics, classism, racism, religion. None of those things make mental health or mental illness exempt, right?
Right.
And
Right.
yes, that's true. The more adverse childhood experiences, the more ACEs a person's experiencing, the greater
Hmm.
risk that person's at. That's
Right.
true, but to
Right.
think that this demographic is going to somehow be exempt because
Right.
of no, no,
Right.
it'll infiltrate everywhere, and
Right.
and and I do think, kind of to your point, about, and I don't know this for sure. I wonder. I know we talk about mental health today differently than we did 5+ years ago. Six
Yeah.
six years
That's
ago,
fair. Yeah, for sure.
pre-pandemic. We just talk more openly, about that for sure. That
Yeah.
on that and I wonder, and this is more of a question than a statement. I wonder if globally our resilience is lower now than it may have been before the pandemic, or maybe it's just
Hmm.
more that because of experiencing not just the pandemic, but the other things around that happened at the same time
Right.
as the pandemic, um,
Right.
that our tolerance is lower, right? Like,
Mm.
here we go again, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
us versus them, and the speed of being
Right.
able to get information out is
Yeah.
so much higher, so much faster now. That
Yeah.
I think all those play a part in it, that makes it look different than it did
Yeah.
maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but the just living in community with other people, right, is the the conversation, the ability to talk about it more is fundamental to finding more health, right? And things getting better and sharing the things in our lives with each other, but also I'll say for me, I think that as you said that, like I do think I don't know. I'm not sure if resilience is quite the right word, but I don't have the better one. I think my resilience and kind of my stamina for like resistance in life man, it goes quick sometimes, right? To that feeling of, okay, everything is terrible. I genuinely think kind of that pre-pandemic, I think I probably it would have taken me a little bit longer to get there. But man, it doesn't take you long scrolling through social media or looking at the news or any of those sorts of things to just feel like I'm a farm kid, right? But that like, man, if you can carry a 5 gallon bucket of worries through the day, it feels like most of us start with like 3.5 gallons in the bucket, like every day. And so just getting that, like, oh man, you hit the point where it's full and starting to spill out. It feels like we hit that quicker. I would say absolutely. And I feel that myself, I feel like I get there faster than I used to, because I think we're just carrying so much from the world around us for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I do think there, it's since 2012, 2015, with the advanced technology of tablets and smartphones, which then make, different type of platforms, social media platforms, even more accessible. Now we have a generation of kids that have not, their life has not existed without some type of smartphone. you know
Right.
they, and even they're, the older ones, like my kids didn't have access to certain types of, phones, and
Mhm.
they were still flip slash slide phones.
Right.
First phones
Right.
were, and they're, Caleb's 29, almost 30, and Sierra will
Yeah.
be 27 here in a few weeks. And they have memory
Right.
pre, internet, right? That,
Right. Pre 100% connection all the time,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, where you could actually unplug and disconnect and be off, without, carrying around this little device that has the weight of the whole world in your pocket
yeah.
24/7.
And access to anything like immediately, right? And so,
Right. Right.
and then, so I think that's a contributing factor to it. I think those
Yeah.
things. At the same time, as you know we're very fortunate that we've sold all the tickets for the event, on the 18th, and
Hmm.
almost entirely the word of mouth regarding the event was through social media. And and so,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think as much as there can be some darkness there, it also
Right.
can be utilized for hope and
Right.
providing a light in that darkness as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's a combination of different things. I guess it goes back to, where do I choose to put my energy, and where do
Right.
I choose to not put my energy toward.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so true. I just came across I haven't followed him for a long time, so I hesitate to like endorse him too much, but just came across an account online that I think it's on Instagram is just Honest Fatherhood. And I'll tell you, it's been already just in like a week or so of those posts coming through, profoundly challenging and encouraging all at the same time, right? And I often find myself after reading it is like the phone goes down and I'm a better dad, right? I'm setting it down. And so that, as you say, for gathering here in a little over a week or so with being able to spread the word and gather together as a community to do great work for the Shatter Our Silence and the efforts you guys are doing in the community, it's a fantastic thing. But the way that if it's a tool that lightens our burdens in life, great, but the degree to which it's a device that just brings more darkness, then obviously we've got something not working how we'd hope right there.
Yeah. And I think, just being able to, I think, raise that awareness. I mean, you know, I have, local schools, that school districts that are now implementing, after these 10 years, implementing rules where the phones have to be put into bags, and you can't be
Yeah.
utilized, right? And
Right.
if,
Right.
5 years ago, that wasn't being questioned. It was
Right.
you
Right.
know it was almost as if we were going through a time period where it was a privilege, maybe even a right,
Hmm.
to have
Oh
your
yeah.
kids on you. And
Yeah.
now we're starting to see a little bit of a shift, and the students that I talked to are going through that. um,
Yeah.
the ones that I've heard from at least are grateful for it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah, we've been doing some of that here in districts in the area, listening to them talk and talking with other administrators. It you know, I'll say when I so this was this 12 years ago as a teacher at the high school level, it was a common thing every day to like, all right, guys, everybody take out your phones and we're gonna look up or we're gonna do or we're gonna try and utilize this tool in the classroom. And yeah, I think just universally kind of across the board, I think we've all recognized a little bit of like I'll say this about me, not trying to talk about everybody else. I take out my phone to do one thing, and then 25 minutes later, I've done seven things, and maybe I did that one. You know what I mean? Like maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe I get distracted by this kind of digital jungle that I pick up every time. And so I think, yeah, for teenagers in classrooms to we have lots of other technology. Let's keep focused on what we're doing versus let's pull that out and have 17 texts and a couple snaps and all that. Then, but no, I'm gonna look up, the stuff I did in class. Probably not, right? You know what I mean? That's probably not the first thing. So I think it's a good thing, and watching that trend shift back towards really at the end of the day is that human to human engagement and connection. I would say at the elementary level, we try to we use technology. This is kind of the mantra I try to share with staff is the like our goal is to use technology in a way that it furthers the educational experience, right? You can log on, you can see this, you can try that, you can have a algorithm help students work on particular math skills until they master them. Those are all things that I think further the educational experience, but at the end of the day, the shortest path between not knowing and learning it and knowing it, right, for a young student is with a loving, caring adult standing next to them, walking them down the path, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as kids get older, sometimes we can complicate that conversation, but really it's the same thing. It's the human connection, somebody walking them down the path of, hey, this is something new, you're wrestling with it, can we get to where we can know it and master it? And let me walk alongside you in that process. I think it just speaks to how incredibly important the human connection is between people. That if to whatever degree technology and phones and us sitting here talking right on a remote connection here, to whatever degree that can help, great. But I think we've been learning and coming to grasp, particularly in education, there's some limits to that before it starts to pull in a direction that's not helping us anymore.
Well, and as you know, developmentally, the
Yeah.
brain development of the brain of a grade school child, from that aspect, you may be able to learn how to complete a task by navigating through a device, but
Yep.
do you know how to apply it to
Right.
things outside of that
Right.
realm, right? And
Yeah.
do we know how to interact with other individuals in the socialization aspect or emotionally regulation
Yeah.
aspect of what we
Yeah.
get from natural play that
Yeah.
happens with human natural play, interacting,
Right.
play,
Right.
and then if we add the outside element to it, outside of an inside lighting, environment, that
Yeah. Right.
one of those things kind of bring that learning to a whole nother level as well as just development.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll say one of my favorite uh things is watching even the older kids at the elementary level still have interactive imaginative play at recess, right? Like, as they get older, the number of kids who want to go play a structured game like kickball or soccer or those sorts of things, right? Like it is, you can see the percentages growing as the grades get older. But man, even there's still always a few, and it's always fun that you get kind of, to me, it always feels like a random day in the spring, when like the school year's winding down, that some kind of imaginative game is happening and the kids all gravitate back to the playground and play together. You can get that all the way up till they're 10, 11 years old, right? Like here in fourth grade. And it comes back to that interaction and the creativity and applying things outside the box of a classroom, right? That it is, to me, what our teachers do in the classroom is incredibly important. But in those moments, to me, I have this like, man, this is so vital to these kids' development and well-being that it's, I don't love standing out there in recess duty in February when it's frigid, but at the same time, I love seeing that happen because it's so important
Yeah.
to their growth and maturation.
Yeah. And no, 100%. So when, as we're thinking about mental health and bringing it into the school, into the schools, and obviously if we're bringing it into the schools and it being, it's been on the radar for the state board of education in Illinois for 20
Hmm.
plus 25 years. It's been on a docket, and we still wrestle with how do we bring social emotional learning in the classroom. And
Yep. Yep.
so when you think of that, the social emotional learning aspect of it, if you were going to give the layman version of that, what comes to mind when from your perspective as an educator,
Yep.
administrative standpoint to an educational standpoint in the classroom, when you think of that, and we were going to explain that to the non-educator,
Yep.
what comes to mind?
Well, oh man, I would say just kind of a quick comment and then my core thoughts on it is social emotional learning is helping teach kids how to process and navigate their emotions, how their emotions impact relationships, how their emotions impact their actions that impact relationships, right? And their own well-being. And I would say this, we have a lot to do at schools, right? We're teaching kids how to read and write and do all these sorts of things. But I think part of why SEL and social emotional education at the school, in the school setting, is so important is because it's direct application, right? Like there's no, that's that it, you're not talking about, it's not like well, group meetings are all good, right? You're not like sitting in a group meeting like, okay, hey, when you have conflict, right? It's like 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? When you wanted to say something in class and you didn't get a chance to, or somebody cut you off and you got interrupted, right? Because we put all these kids in a small setting together, there's going to be natural conflict, right? Not all from a negative thing, but just there's going to be things that some kids hope for and they're not going to work out in the day, right? They're going to hope that they're going to get to be the line leader at like elementary level stuff. They're going to hope that they get chosen to be the adventurer of the week. They're going to hope this and that, and then it's not going to happen, right? Because everybody takes a turn, everybody gets a chance. And so they go through these natural emotional responses, right? And then their emotions inform their actions impact their relationships. And so when it comes to working on these kinds of things at school, it's hard. And I'll say this as an administrator because you look at your day and you go, man, we have so much to get through academically, right? That there's always this tension of making space for the social emotional education. But for when it comes to kids' well-being and growth, man, there's some degree of like we just have to do it here, right? Like it has to be a part of what happens in the school setting. And I think as the kids get older, that just gets more and more important, right? Because everything is happening right here in real time, and being able to help equip them to navigate those moments of disappointment, those moments of frustration, those moments of confusion within a within just like small percentage of their day versus it always being after the fact, always being trying to prepare them, for the next thing. I think I'll make this comment, like I loved coaching in that season of life where I got to do that. And I always have kind of felt like in the school setting is a little bit like when you're scrimmaging in practice, right? Where like it's things happen and you can just pause it. You know what I mean? You can just pause it right then and there, and you can talk through with kids about how when they rotate on defense and they see it, and then you just launch back into it, right? Where in a game, you can't stop the game that long. You get a 30-second timeout, and everybody's distracted by the crowd. And when you're running drills, it's not the real thing, right? It's just one-on-one. It's not the full movement of the game. And that's where I think, to bring that back to social emotional learning in the school setting is so important, right? Because it's where we have the kids here for 8 hours a day. And it's our chance in the midst of all those real life scenarios to help teach them and coach them through those moments and help them grow in a way that I'll just say, I don't think you get that kind of opportunity really anywhere else in a kid's life.
Well, and I think, like so many times, when we think, as a clinical therapist, you know, those initial, I'm going to call them for lack of wounds that happen, those
Mm.
initial experiences with some type of trauma or setback or something happening, many times it's in grade school.
Yeah, yeah,
Many,
yeah.
if not in grade school, it's middle school, right? And
Right,
these
right,
foundational things that end up happening in the development. And then some of us, right, we make a decision based upon what we experience and based upon the circumstances. And we might be 10 years old, and at 18, we're still seeing the world through that 10-year-old
right,
lens. Oh
right.
no, I'm 38 years old, still seeing it through that 10-year-old lens.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for
I had a
sure.
bad experience swimming, with
Right,
water at 10 years old, and I haven't been near water since then.
right, right,
Wait, you were 10. I mean,
right, right.
you're
Yeah,
taller now,
right.
you know,
You're totally capable of this now,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
you can stand up in the shallow end.
yeah,
It's okay. But I
yeah,
think from a social emotional piece, I was
yeah.
thinking when you were just talking, we use that term today, but social emotional learning has been going on since there's been teachers,
Right,
right?
right,
Like
right.
when we think back to our growing up experience and that teacher, that coach stands out to us that helped us or motivated us or
Yeah,
whatever during that time period, that coach or that teacher or that educator, that that was social emotional learning that they were
right,
doing at that time. It's just
right,
now in 2025, we're trying to what did they do? Those good teachers do, those good coaches do, and then we try to break that down into
yeah,
little
yeah.
segments about
Right,
now.
right. How can we take that and make it more consistent, right?
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah. And I think, not to oversimplify that, but
Yeah,
that I think is part of it. I think the
right.
metaphor of coaching or in the arts, right, of
Yeah,
learning to be able to do that, that's where it's transferable to the science class or the math class or the
yeah,
reading class, where it's really about coming up alongside and helping someone when they struggle, not
right,
if they struggle. And
right, right,
and and being able to say when you're struggling, it's okay to ask for help. When
right.
you're, whatever it may be. And so
Yeah,
I know for us with Shatter Our Silence, that's where the name came from. And how do we shatter all of our silence on the
right.
factors that lead to young adult suicide or suicide? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
well, I appreciate everything that you do from a
Well,
standpoint
thanks, Kevin.
of from an educational standpoint, your passion for your educators, for your students, for your family, and then then obviously once a month or so I get to see you on stage as well, and get to
Yeah,
learn from
yeah,
you as well. So I
yeah.
appreciate that. If for anybody listening, if there was something that you wanted to kind of like a seed to plant with anybody listening, what final thing would you want to leave with them?
I think thinking about getting together, right, in just a handful of days here for the Shatter Our Silence dinner. The thing as I've been thinking about that, I'm praying about, man, what can I offer in that moment as an encouragement? I don't want to do the whole time right now, but I would just say the simple seed that's been coming back to me, whether it's in my own life or in uh, lives of kids as I've walked beside them, is one of the most fundamentally important things is being willing to be a person who's willing to be interrupted, right? And then also somebody that's willing to jump in on behalf of somebody else, right? Just those two things. We've all got places to be. We've all got stuff to do. We've all got things pressing on our plate, but all around us, whether it's something we understand in the moment or something that we won't understand until we get a little bit further down the road. Man, there's people all around us that could use our time and our love and our care and our help wherever they're at, right? In their own process and growth with their own mental well-being and social emotional balance, I think would be the word I'm looking for there. But man, to just that we can be people who are willing to be interrupted by other humans around us and willing to jump in when they need us is something that's been on my heart and mind a lot recently.
Well, I think that that aspect of, you know, educating ourselves about what are those warning signs, what's the difference between a protective factor versus
Yeah,
risk factors, being aware of that, being educated about that, and then being willing to
right.
stop, for me, I'm still that person that if I see someone on the side of the road, and their car's broken down, I'm going to pull over.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
Diane's not always happy about that.
It doesn't love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I try not. I don't typically will do it if she's in the car with me, but if I'm by
yeah,
myself, I'll do that
right.
because
Let me see what I can do, folks.
right,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
probably won't be fixing their car, but
right.
I can definitely give some support or at least get them
Right,
linked up.
right.
But
Get
the
it, help them get connected. Yeah.
yeah, but I think your point being aware and being educated and the willingness to then act on that is I think that's key. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. I've loved getting to connect here. Thank you very much, man.
Absolutely. So, if for some reason, as you were listening to Matt and I had this conversation today about shadow or silence, about being the light in someone's in darkness, and that willingness to step in, maybe you're prompted to send this episode to someone that may need to hear that right now. You never know when someone might be struggling, and the timing of you being able to send that. As always, thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you next week.